conscious consumerism is probably the most important thing to me. Conscious consumerism. And that's from the food I eat to the music I listen to the businesses I support. And I realized if I can become aware, if I can become conscious of how I consume, it can completely really change how I feel each and every day. And also like my own reality, my own world. And so I think it's very, very important to understand the intentions behind things, whether it's our food, our music, the furniture we buy, or the businesses that we support. What were their intentions?
Yeah! What's up, everybody? Your life alchemist, your dragon. Welcome to Alchemize Life. I'm your host, Justin David Carl. This is a show where I seek out and share expertise, wisdom, and thought leadership in all domains with the mission of empowering and inspiring you to proactively design and truly live a life worth living. We're all in this together, and when we do the work together, we go so much farther, so much faster, and have so much more fun. Without further ado, let's dig into this episode and alchemize life. Justin Lovato, so good to have you on the show. I want you to start us off strong and tell us how you approach working out.
The way I really approach working out is making it a point to connect with my person, whether it's I'm doing yoga, weight training, bodybuilding style, or the kettlebell flow or the mace stuff. It's really about being present with my person and connecting with my person. Essentially, it's a form of meditation, I would say, but it's really about connecting with Justin during these sessions and challenging him and encouraging him during that exercise or training. And it's a really wonderful way for me to connect and have such a wonderful experience during that process.
And I'm curious, do you think other people approach working out in the same regard with an intention to connect with their person or their body? Or do you think a majority of people come at it from maybe a different place?
I think most people operate in general from fear and lack, whether it's training, even nutrition, to look good or have abs, or even a profession, trying to be good at something. I think most people do operate, unfortunately, from a place of fear or lack of, am I enough? So that is a little bit harder to connect with our person when we're operating from that place. And I think what we're really trying to chase is connection, which is ironic during that session, but we're just trying to look good enough to connect with our community and the people around us. But it's really about connecting with our person first, being present with our person, and we can really obtain that and start doing that through training and through other things as well. But yeah, I think that most people don't really enjoy working out, and it's also why they can't probably keep it consistent. Is this mindset of training to be enough. And I think over time, when we're operating from a place of fear or lack, it's not very sustainable. And so when we can operate with the love for connection with self and to be healthy for ourselves and longevity and all those things, training becomes much more fun. It becomes much more purposeful when we're operating from love.
Yeah, totally agree with you. In my own experience, for most of my life, I actually hated my body, consciously hated it. And I was constantly trying to beat it into shape. In the end of 2013, I started a self-love and self-acceptance practice, which was kind of far out there, to be honest. I would actually stand in front of a giant mirror, completely naked, and I would affirm to myself that I love myself just as I am, and I love my body just as it is, and I accept my body just as it is. And for me, some of the days I would laugh at myself, like almost in like ridicule and like, you're like, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is ridiculous. Other days I would like literally cry. And other days it just felt so good. And I went through like such a huge range of emotions, but the ultimate result was that I actually got in the best shape of my life by like loving myself into shape. So that was a huge shift for me back at the end of 2013. And, I still to this day, like, it's like an ongoing practice, right? I still sometimes find myself trying to like revert back into the less evolved version of myself that's trying to beat myself back into shape or beat myself into staying in shape. But it's so much more effective and infinitely more enjoyable when I remember and practice loving myself into shape.
Yeah, I think that's a huge component when we can operate from that space. And I think it is very sustainable in probably every single way. And just a better, healthy relationship with our overall person. What really helps me is kind of not identifying with the person.
Mm.
And that's really been powerful for me to hold space in so many ways and to connect and to operate from a place of love. When I can do that, it's almost like taking care of a dog almost. A lot of people are better about feeding their pets healthier food and taking them on long walks and giving them exercise than they are themselves. And me not identifying with the person really allows me to step outside of it to create safe space for him in all these different ways, feed him healthy food, take him on long walks, challenge him in exercise, get him down to meditate, all the above. And it's been a really wonderful practice being able to step outside of the identity with the person so that I can actually love him and treat him with care and presence and mindfulness in everything that I do.
Yeah. Well, before we dive in too deep, I want to actually, give the audience a intro into like who you are and what you do, at least in this iteration of your human experience. So
Yeah.
Justin Lovato is a behavioral coach. He's a breathwork facilitator, a plant ceremony guide. For those who, are unaware of what he looks like, he's like super ridiculously jacked. And, his Instagram is always full of both fitness from the physical standpoint, but also I would say from the spiritual, mental, and emotional standpoint. So we'll link to his Instagram, Justin D. Lovato, in the show notes, of course. But, I came into contact with you ultimately through Nimai. And because, there was when the pandemic hit, the two of you were like working out like all the time. And, I saw Nimai's stories on Instagram and I was like, oh, who's this guy? And ultimately we ended up connecting over Instagram. And, I remember hopping on to one of your lives and we discussed, some things like plant medicine and some other stuff. And I've been dying to have you on the show, or I shouldn't say dying because that's a terrible thing to say. I've been so excited to have you on the show because I've really wanted to share breath work with more people. And I've had my own experience with it, but in my opinion, you're definitely, thought leader in the space of breath work. And I wanted to get you on the podcast to actually like dive into what breath work is and how it can be utilized to empower one's life journey, their fitness, their health, their mental, emotional, spiritual growth, and all of the kind of benefits, as well as like the how to actually do it. But before we get to that, I kind of want to go through your own kind of life journey, like how you actually got to becoming a breathwork coach and behavioral coach and doing all this stuff. So like, where I want to start personally, because you and I share such a huge love of like, fitness and bodybuilding is like, how did you go from, competitive bodybuilder to like who you are now? So take us back to kind of the origin story.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I was doing competitive bodybuilding for about 10 years from age, I would say 19 till about 29, give or take. And during that time as well, I became a personal trainer. And through that experience, I realized that I really enjoyed essentially holding safe space for individuals. I wasn't training bodybuilders and I wasn't training fitness people in general. I was training the regular moms and dads and regular people who just really wanted to be healthy for themselves and for their family. So it was coming from a really cool place. It was coming from love. And
Mm,
so those were my clients, and they felt really safe with me, and I can feel that within them. And then also many of my friends throughout the years, Austin actually, would always tell me they felt safe around me. And big, strong men would tell me they felt safe around me.
mm,
And I always would crack up about it when they would say it because it did get said often. And then as I started doing my own work, my own conscious growth, I found myself organically leaning into breathing in the morning. I'm completely self-taught in my breath work and also the behavioral coaching, the conscious conversations. It was just all through like a really organic approach. Even that was the way with bodybuilding and even training, to be honest. All of my work has been really an organic approach of first exploring it myself, growing in consciousness, and being around people saw the change in me and became very curious
mm,
and would ask like, hey, what are you doing? Because I'm seeing a change in you. I'm seeing all these new things. And they became very, very interested. And so when I was training people in PT and I started getting into the breath and meditating daily for myself, they became curious, as I mentioned, and then I started adding breath work into their PT programs. So I
mm,
was first having them kind of breathe in between sets, as opposed to just kind of sitting there resting, because I was doing that with myself, and I was kind of putting them into a really wonderful meditative state throughout the entire session. Because as they were either doing the set itself, and then after the set, they'd be doing some form of breath work, and then back into the set, and then some form of breath work.
mhm.
So these sessions became unbelievably transformative. They would leave glowing, they would leave lighter, happier, more centered, more present. And then at the end of the session, I would also have them just lay down, simply lay down, and I would put on some conscious music, some shamanic music, and just have them simply be. It was a lot easier for them to kind of already be still without thoughts due to the session and the way it was run. So really wonderful sessions. And then they would actually start coming into PT sessions and ask if they could do a full hour of breath work. And yeah, which was kind of neat because I ended up over time creating a full hour of breath work just for myself, through experimenting and stuff like that. So I just started running them through the program I created through myself. And it was powerful, and word kept getting around as far as like what kind of space I was now holding. People became more interested. They were contacting me to get into breath work. I also obviously started advertising it more and more on my social media, sharing my own personal experiences and growth and ideas and stuff like that. And over time, you know, I became just much more conscious and more mindful on how to operate in this world. And it was a substantial shift in how I lived, in the paradigm I was operating in. And people saw that and were really curious about that and really wanted to understand how I was achieving this. And so for me, meditation creates such a wonderful place of stillness for consciousness to kind of come through. I really feel that the present moment is essentially a portal for consciousness or original thoughts to come through. And if we can quiet the mind, quiet our thoughts, or at least create some space from those thoughts, this is where we can essentially level up. And so I realized that getting down first thing in the morning and creating this extreme moment of peace or nothingness or stillness, I was able to essentially get these downloads of of how to be more love, of how to be more mindful, how to be more conscious. And I was able to remove behaviors or become aware of them completely and make powerful changes within myself very easily because I was no longer identifying with them or attached to them. I could forgive easily, accept easily, let go, move through. And yeah, and it became just so powerful. It's such a wonderful way to separate or zoom out from the thoughts, from the self. And you can really make some powerful changes when you do that, when you're operating from more loving, conscious space.
Yeah. So help me understand kind of the um, genesis, because it sounds like this all happened like overnight. But like I've been, watching you since I went ultimately vegan about 3 years ago. And I feel like you've been moving into like greater and greater alignment with your dharma.
Mm.
And like, like the way you're showing up in the world, and, what you're actually doing in the world. And so I'm kind of just curious. So you're bodybuilding from 19 to 29. And then at some point you started the personal training, the PT. How long were you doing personal training before kind of like the breath work
Mhm.
started to get incorporated? Was it like immediately? Was it, a few years of just like straight training? Like help me kind of like expand time a little bit and
Yeah.
look at your journey.
Yeah. I think I started PTing around, I think, age 27, maybe 28. And I was PTing all the way until I would say 35. So almost like a good 10 years of PTing. And at around 35 is when I started merging and shifting into that new space. It was funny was, what's funny is that around 29 is when I started experiencing or experimenting with psychedelic mushrooms.
Hmm.
And I was having profound shifts in consciousness, but it was almost still completely unaware. Like I remember when I first did mushrooms, the next morning I found myself just simply recycling more. And it wasn't like I was told or even a download happened. I just became more mindful of how I was operating. And it also included on like how I was eating it was a big shift. Being a bodybuilder, especially at that time, I was consuming lots of animal protein, just lots of food in general, not being very mindful of where it was coming from and just the gluttony of it as well. And that was a big shift also. Just I became aware of like how much I was consuming and in every way too, not just with food, but also with the businesses I supported and the way I operated. I just became more mindful. I became more aligned. I think a lot of times when we get into the psychedelics, when we get into meditation, we really start aligning ourselves with divinity. And when we do that for those brief moments and then go back out into the real world, we can start to see what doesn't align with us energy wise. And at first, this was all very unconscious, but I could feel it unconsciously. And I would start making shifts in my behaviors throughout the day and becoming more mindful of how I operated. And around 32 is when I first tried DMT. And that was another big shift in awareness and in consciousness. And that was a really beautiful journey because when it happened, it was the first time I became absolutely nothing, absolutely nobody. I lost form of body, of self, identifying with the self. And, but I was in some way just consciousness or a soul, if you will. And next to me, there was a female entity, which was really powerful, a really strong female entity full of ridiculous amounts of love. And she acknowledges me and I acknowledge her, and we're just essences. There's no bodies. And she starts filling my soul or whatever I was up with love, like tremendous amounts of love, like some overpowering love. And then she stops and she acknowledges that I am familiar with that feeling. And I let her know I am familiar with this feeling. And again, she like kind of like tipped her hat to me And then she fills me up more and more and more and more, to the point where like, there was no more room, but then I burst, but I'm still there. It's kind of interesting. Like I burst into everything. And then she stops again and she goes, and you're familiar with this as well. And I remember being really happy that I was familiar with this type of love. Like I really did like who I was. I loved who I am. And she acknowledges that and was really happy for me that I had that type of love and I could see it within myself. And then she also at the same time, though, let me know that most people have no idea what that feels like. And I felt a bit sad for a moment, like a heavy sadness, due to possible ignorance, maybe. Like I wasn't aware that the world was suffering in many ways and people were suffering and they didn't know this type of love. But then she quickly told me not to feel bad. She kind of like picked me back up. She's like, don't feel bad. It's you just didn't know, but go out there and show them, go out there and tell them. And obviously at the time I had no idea, what was really happening, what I was talking to, what I was experiencing, because the way I kind of do things is, without doing any research. All of the way I've done my entire life has been a very organic approach, curiosity, and without much looking into, including DMT and mushrooms. So I didn't know really what to think, and at the same time, I didn't put much thought into it, except for I thought I had to get everybody to smoke DMT at the time, and I learned quickly like that's not it. So for the next, I think I was around 32. So for the next 5 years, I would use DMT here and there when I felt it was needed, if I was struggling with something and I couldn't quite see. And from that, I kept connecting to this higher version of myself. So people call it their higher selves. And I would get downloads or lessons from this space of stillness using the DMT. I wasn't meditating quite yet, even though this is a form of meditation with the medicine. And so I was learning and evolving and upgrading every time. And I was then applying it, and it was changing how I operated each and every day, how I functioned, how I consumed, how I talked to people, almost even purpose started shifting. And it was really beautiful. And then once I found breathwork, which was about, I would say 3 years later, around 35 years old, or maybe 36 even, maybe 4 years old, I randomly started doing breathwork in the morning, which is kind of funny. I just randomly started taking powerful breaths in the morning, and I just laid down on my back, and I, again, never looked into breathwork. And that's what's kind of beautiful about this type of stuff. I think when we really start connecting to these more deeper parts of ourselves, these more conscious parts of ourselves, these little intuition, these little whispers almost come through, and you might not even hear them, but you end up kind of just randomly doing breath work in the morning, and you don't even know that you're meditating even. And that's kind of how I fell into it, which is kind of funny. And even like the number of rounds I picked, which is 7, was random because I had no idea what the 7 chakras were. And so it was kind of cool to look at the synchronicities as I continued my growth and saw all these like really cool things that were happening, and allowed me to lean into it even more. And yeah. And then as I, kind of got into the breath work, I was like, as I mentioned, I was combining it with training, and eventually I was doing and facilitating breath work as opposed to training.
Hey there, just a few words about the incredible show sponsors for today's episode, and then we'll dig right back in. Today's show is brought to you by Veg Nutrition, Live Better. So I'm actually a veg elite athlete, and before I joined the team, I spent months doing my due diligence to make sure that the company was vision, mission, and value aligned with me, my values, my mission, my vision, and my lifestyle. I got to know the owners super well. I even got to know the person who formulates all the products, and they passed with flying colors. So I couldn't be more excited to represent a company that I feel so aligned with. And I want to tell you about two of my favorite products. The first is the veg pre workout. So when I first went vegan or mostly vegan, the last thing for me to go fully vegan was finding a vegan pre workout that gave me the focus, the energy, and the power that I was looking for. And I can tell you, this is the best pre workout that I've ever had. It gives me incredible focus and energy. And what's probably the best is it leaves me with no crash after I take it, which is great. And the flavors are so freaking good. There's literally peach mango and a Patriot Pop that tastes like, the firecracker popsicles, cherry lemon lime flavor. They're literally so good that I can dry scoop them. And they just released a watermelon flavor for just in time for summer, and it's incredible. So that's the first product. The second product is arguably also my favorite, and that's the plant protein. It comes in 3 incredible flavors: chocolate peanut butter, vanilla ice cream, and cold brew coffee. Yep, you heard me. Cold brew coffee flavor. It tastes incredible, all 3 flavors, 25 grams of protein, fully organic, incredible ingredients, heavy metal tested, and it is my go-to post-workout. Make sure that I'm recovering and refueling and giving my muscles the protein that they need to rebuild for that next workout. So go to vegnutrition.com/dragon and try their full line of supplements, and you'll get 15% off. Or you can just use Dragon at checkout and you'll get 15% off. So that's vegnutrition.com/dragon to get 15% off. Veg Nutrition, live better. Yeah, I love that. It's such a beautiful journey, and you're such an intuitive being. And in terms of, that feeling of experiencing kind of like safeness around you, and kind of the way I see it and feel it in my mind is like, or even in my body, is you are like a grounding force, and that groundingness of you feels incredibly like safe and expansive at the same time, which is, in preparation, for this interview, I listened to a couple of your other interviews, and the way that you speak and hold yourself and verbally carry yourself is just, it's incredibly grounding, even though like you've done some far out shit. And you do a lot of like kind of like crazy stuff. Like I can't wait for people who haven't seen you on Instagram to just like go check out like how you work out and how you live your life. And you're just like, you're a very unique and fascinating person who's not like, some people that are like super woo are like, they're so untethered to this earth plane that like you can't even like, you're just like, get away from me because you're too like untethered. And I feel like you're like super far out, but you're like at the same time like deeply rooted in this place called Earth.
I agree, because I understand that it depends on your personal beliefs, but my definition, I guess, of what enlightenment is understanding that the universe that is consciousness is experiencing itself through everything, through everyone, all at once, all the time, through different levels of awareness. Through you, through me, through trees, through rocks, birds, bees, the space in between, everything. And I really love the idea that I am starting to understand consciousness and or enlightenment, but I also fully embody that I'm experiencing this right now. And I love my person. I really do love that I get to experience all of this with him and hold space for him and challenge him and love him in all these ways. So, yeah, and that way I love being here. I love being here experiencing this, and I don't want to be up there. The only reason why I truly meditate and go into the quantum or spirit world is so that I can simply become more mindful down here. And that's kind of
Yeah.
like, you know, my purpose or the way I like to lead my life and is to learn how to be mindful so that I can not cause suffering. I really feel that we really do have just these forks in the road every time we go out into the world, and most of the forks we're really not aware of. We're mostly ignorant to, and I like to become mindful of all these forks. And there's usually two choices, or only two choices, and it's service to self or service to others.
Mhm.
And some of those forks are easy to make changes. Other ones are a little bit hard depending on how attached you are to them. But I really enjoy that process. I really enjoy that process of getting quiet every day so that I can become more mindful of these forks, so that I can make behavioral changes within myself, so that I can cause less suffering. And I also believe that we are all energy and the law. So if I can really take that kind of seriously, I realize that my reality also changes, and I truly do benefit in all the loving ways when I make more mindful practices and choices, more loving choices, and it really has seemed to just work out that way as well. Like my life keeps getting more loving, more amazing, and it's been beautiful. Like leaning into that and trusting in the law of the universe, the law of attraction.
Yeah. So, in addition to, researching some of your other podcasts, I did your cosmic
Yeah.
breath work this morning, which is a 60-minute program. And I just wanted to share my experience with the audience because it was definitely a good one. And it was, to give the audience a little bit of context, I've actually done breath work, multiple different forms, for the last several years. Like Wim Hof breath work, pranayama, which is like alternate nose breathing, breath of fire, because I've done a lot of work with yoga, and also holotropic breath work with my mom, who is actually trained by Stan Groff, who developed holotropic breath work. And he's kind of like, I know you're like completely self taught, but he's kind of like one of the like OG like breath work people, like way before like Wim Hof. Um, I kind of felt myself like I was really excited about yesterday when I was like messaging you about like, hey, like I want to like do it before I interview you. And then this morning I kind of woke up and I was feeling like a little bit resistant to it. Like, like, like I'm tired. Like, I've been training really hard at the gym. I've been working really hard at work. And, like I kind of just want to like, you know, do some creative work, and then I want to go to the gym and like, maybe I'll just do like part of the 60-minute session to so I can like come to the show and talk about it. And so I did some of my creative work first, and after being up for about, I don't know, 60 to 90 minutes, I was like, all right, I'm gonna like at least do like 20 minutes of it before I like head off to the gym. And I, got my room set up. I have a office slash creative studio. And fortunately, I'm a very spiritual person. So I have giant gemstones in here, and like, ones that are like this
Ah,
freaking big. And I'm like holding like two size of two basketballs in my head for those who can't see it. And I just got set up on the floor, and I put my eye mask on, and my AirPods in, so and laid down and started your cosmic breathwork program. And it was really awesome in the sense that the 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 way the quality, first of all, of it
Thank you.
is incredible. The sound recording, your voice recording quality is incredibly high. The music that you chose was like so wonderful, and you know, with the first round or so, I was like, okay, I'm kind of feeling this, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do like 2 or 3 rounds and then like stop, and go off to the gym. And by the time I got to the third round, I was like, okay, this is feeling really good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do one more. And then I got to the fourth one. It's like, okay, I'll stop after five. And I got to five, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going. And I was like, I might get seven, I might not. I'm just gonna listen to myself. And somewhere around, I don't know, maybe around five, I started having the more, I don't know, cosmic or, cerebral experiences that I've experienced in like deep breathwork sessions. But normally, like, I feel like it would take me like a lot
Yeah.
longer to get to. And I'm gonna get a little weird on the audience, but so like I have a higher being that I
Nice.
work with, and sometimes he's very present in my life, and sometimes I go for months without even like connecting or conversing with him. And he is
Yeah.
me and
Yeah.
I am him. He's just like a kind of
Right.
like
Higher self.
yeah, a higher being that is like here for me. And like he totally showed up around like round 4 or 5. And you know, in preparation for the show, I was listening to your show on Mark Bell's podcast, and you talked about using kind of that space that breathwork creates to heal your body. So I started like working on some like injuries that were in my body, and also just doing some like manifestation of some
Mm.
financial goals and creative work goals, and like with my higher being. And like it was like incredible. And like so like parts of my body that were healing would like start
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
vibrating, and I was like, okay, this is like really good. And it was just such an incredible experience. And like I was not expecting to have such a deep experience this morning. I was expecting to just do like 20, 30 minutes, like phone it in so I could talk to you like about the
Ama-
experience better. And then it ends up going super freaking deep to the point where at the very end, like my higher being, like actually like flipped in space and like merged with my body, like in kind of like perfect alignment. And like my whole body was like crazy, like just like vibrating and feeling amazing. And then at the very end, like this almost like if a lion was made out of stars and constellations, like came at the very end. And then this purple light, like the color of your crown chakra, like just started like after the lion. And I'm like not even joking, I'm not making this up for the show. Like this is like what happened in my cosmic breathwork session led by Justin Lovato this morning. And it was like I was like, god, and I don't think I've done like a breathwork session like that in probably, I don't know,
uh,
5 years. And it was really, really good. And to know that I could literally just, do that through your program on, just open it up on my phone and do it. And I didn't have to go, coordinate a whole trip to go see my mom, and do a session with her, or like fly out to Texas to do a session with you. And the fact that it was just so accessible and that I had such a powerful experience. Now, I don't think everyone's going to have like such a wild and crazy experience necessarily the first time they do your program,
yeah.
but they might. So I just wanted to share kind of my experience with you. And it's been a while since I've done kind of that deep, deep, like visualization, healing, like goal manifestation work. And it was truly like magical and epic. And I just want to
Oh man,
express
that's
my
so
deep
awesome to
gratitude.
hear. Awesome to hear. That's so
Yeah.
cool. That's actually very common for people that do the program, which is really cool. These profound experiences. I love it. Yeah, I love that you were able to connect with your higher self and move energy in and through your body, healing yourself and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, love is an amazing thing. It can do a lot when we tap
Yeah.
into higher parts of ourselves, more conscious parts of ourselves, more loving parts of ourselves, because consciousness is love. And stillness is
Yeah.
love. Stillness is consciousness. And that's what's really kind of neat about meditation is I think a lot of people don't really still conceptualize what we're doing during meditation. And all we're doing is
Hmm.
raising our vibration, becoming more and more still, more and more present. And when we can do that, some really magical stuff can happen. We can quiet the mind, create space from our thoughts, zoom out, become the watcher, and do some really amazing
Hmm.
things and change parts of ourselves, not only physically, but also mentally as well. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. Yeah, then I went and had, like, such a fun, like,
Present.
flow, like, leg day workout. I was like, "Oh, this is great." And I was just like, it was just really good. So, before, I wanna dive in a little bit, for those who are completely new to breath work, never heard of it, don't really know much about it, like, can you kind of, like, give the audience kind of a sense of, like, how you would, you know, do your cosmic breath program, like what's the setting, like how are you breathing, and just kind of like give us a little sampling. Would obviously we're not going to do a 60-minute breath work right here and now, but just so people would can conceptualize how they
Yeah,
would do
wonderful.
this
So
in their own home.
this breath work, I think falls in the category of transcendental breath work or Zen, becoming nobody. And that's really what this breath work
Mm,
does. It allows us to almost ascend into the quantum, ascend into the spirit world, almost leaving body. You can get to the point where it almost can be as powerful as a DMT experience. And
mm,
that's the style that you are working with. And there's three other ones. There's shorter versions, but the longer version allows you to obviously ascend more. And these ones are done particularly laying down on your back. And like I mentioned, put blinders on. Having either a good music system or earphones is really powerful. Chapstick is important. Um, and you can either do mouth breathing, but there you go. I prefer nose to mouth breathing. It's been really powerful. I seem to be able to actually drop in a little bit quicker. I was doing mouth breathing for quite a while because I really enjoyed deep, deep, powerful, powerful breaths. And as I done more research on just nose breathing in general, I've kind of started shifting more into nose to mouth breathing, and I'm able to, as I mentioned, drop into the meditation a little bit quicker. But either fine, my
so just to give the audience an example, that would be like,
we're breathing into the belly, expanding the belly when we breathe in, and you can put your hand on your belly to kind of find that. At first, I don't think most people don't really actually know how to breathe into their belly. We kind of have more shallow breathing, and we breathe into just kind of our chest and our shoulders and stuff like that. So if you want to really start learning how to breathe properly, putting your hand on your stomach and feeling your belly rise and fall is a really great way to start breathing into your belly, deeper parts. There's 7 rounds. In this particular one, the 60-minute one, there's 7 rounds, and each round is approximately 2 minutes in breathing. And then as we get to the end of that 2-minute round, there is a prompt to exhale and hold for a duration of time, and then a prompt to inhale and hold for a duration of time. And then it falls into another round. And each round is pretty neat because we extend the holds as we move along. And the first round is 30 seconds and 30 seconds. The next round is 45, 45. The third round is 1 minute, 1 minute. The fourth round is 1 minute, 15. Exhale, hold. 1 minute, inhale, hold. And then the fifth round is a 1 minute, 30. Exhale, hold. And then a 1 minute, inhale, hold. Sixth round, 1:45 exhale hold, 1 minute inhale hold. And then the last round is a 2-minute exhale hold. And then for as long as you like, inhale hold. And then you are prompted that you will then fall into a meditative state. And a lot of times, depending on the individual's mind and how chattery it can be, some people can almost become nobody by the third or fourth round, and they're just going with the prompts. It's almost like a form of hypnosis. And some other people, it takes a little bit longer, depending on how intrusive their thoughts are or how much possible trauma they're carrying, to really create some stillness within their thoughts. And it can be each person's journey or experience is always going to be one that fits for them. It's exactly what they need. And every time you do it, it's going to be different every single time. Every time you do it, it's a new lesson. Often it's just becoming still, and the magic happens after the breath work as you go through your day, because you're at a different frequency now. You're more mindful now. And that's really where the good stuff happens. You start kind of aligning yourself differently and how you operate differently. And that's what I really love about it more than anything. I think a lot of times as we kind of first get into breath work, these profound experiences are happening quite often, especially if you do come from some trauma and you have some deep healing. These are some really, really tough. They can be scary because our person is looking to understand that they are loved and they are worthy and that they've always been enough. And so this space can be intimidating for many, this stillness. And learning how to accept love is hard for many. And so this is a good shadow work, if you will, in many ways, but it's done with so much love. It's amazing the type of healing that you can do. And then after you do quite a bit of healing, you end up understanding it's about just kind of retraining your person to simply be more present. And that's where I'm mostly at, is like, I make it a point. It's all about beingness at this point. Sometimes I really still have some of these profound moments in how I can become better. And other times if I'm sitting with something that isn't aligned, I can release it, which is really cool. Like if my ego's present, I can remove it.
One comment I did want to make, because I really want people to understand how accessible this is. I have a super hyper active mind. So I'm like one of those people, my mind is always working on, if not something, multiple things. And with the Cosmic Breathwork program that you've created, you're guiding the user the entire time. And so that, I think, is really important for people to understand about the program, because you're not just like sitting in a room with like, an eye mask on, like for an hour.
Prompted.
Like you actually are being guided through and prompted to, breathe in certain ways, hold, there's encouragement, there's like a loving awareness space being held for you by the virtual avatar of Justin Lovato. And like, you're not just like, oh, I'm bored out of my mind, just sitting here and my mind is racing. Cause like when you're doing that much breathing, like you almost like can't think like too much, because you're like, you're trying to follow the program. And then as you're following the program, then you
yes. And that's what's beautiful about these tools, right? And that's what these things are. They're just modalities or tools for us to fall into a meditative state. Meditation is going to be hard for anybody, especially people with an over analytical mind, intrusive thoughts and trauma, anxiety. So this is a really tough thing for people trying to just simply sit still in a room with a mask on, and that just doesn't work. And so you can use certain tools like the breath to essentially allow yourself to fall into a meditative state. The breath does a number of things. It really gives your mind something to focus on. And the fact that you are guided to remove like a lot of the thinking aspects of it. Am I doing it right? All these type of thoughts that can come through. And then you can really start paying attention to sensations in your body, because that's what kind of really pulls people in deeper, when they start feeling the parts of their hands start to vibrate or tingle, we feel energy moving in and through their body, releasing. Tremors and stuff like that can definitely happen as well. And this really helps also kind of fall into this space and less resistance, kind of letting go. And yeah, the fact that it is fully guided is a really wonderful way to get people into this practice. And using a tool like the
Yeah.
breath is, I feel, out of all the tools, out of all the modalities, I feel it's the best one because you're also moving tremendous amounts of energy around with the breath. So most people's body cellularly, they're riddled with anxiety, they're riddled with fear, and most people hold their trauma deeply, deeply within their body. And this is like a really hard thing where most people are operating from. So breathing alone can free a lot of this energy up. It can clean your vessel. It can clean your body. And so while we do that, it gets a little bit easier to settle in as you're breathing so much. The mind gets a little bit quieter as we're breathing, and the intrusive thoughts start to settle. And what's even more amazing, like by the time you are doing it your third, fourth, fifth day in a row, it just gets easier and easier and easier. And then you can start managing your thoughts because you are essentially zooming out from those thoughts during the program. And so this zooming out effect is what's really powerful because you aren't your thoughts, right? You're not your thoughts. You're not your feelings. You're not your emotions. You're not the person. So being able to zoom out on an everyday basis, you start zooming out in your everyday basis as you go through it. And you can start making some powerful behavioral changes and break some powerful habits and become aware of how you operate, how a lot of these autopilot behaviors truly don't serve us. In fact, cause more anxiety and more depression. And that's the real sweet spot is the afterglow or the afterflow of this work.
Yeah. I was definitely glowing afterwards. As I was getting prepared to go to the gym, I was like, just like floating around my house. It was awesome. I even, I was like listening to music and kind of like dancing around as I was like getting going. And it was just such a deeply enjoyable experience. And, for the audience, like I've never done like DMT. I've tried mushrooms a couple times, but like honestly, they're pretty bad experiences. Like probably because I had the setting wrong, and I've never done LSD or anything like that. So the audience members that are interested in plant medicine, like this is you know something that you can add to your kind of exploration of this spiritual journey that we're on. And for all the people that either are not interested or even scared of psychedelics, like this is literally an incredible way that you can have a psychedelic experience like I had this morning without doing anything other than using your breath and some music
Yeah,
and some guidance
we can
from
really
Justin.
simplify what medicine is doing. I think a lot of times, again, we really don't know what the medicine is doing, and it's just creating presence, a level of presence within us, and you can take a little bit and become a little bit more present, and that's very powerful. That's why microdosing, I think, we're seeing at such a beautiful level of people benefiting so much because presence is consciousness, presence is love. They're all symbiotic. So when we start really tapping into presence, because that's what we really want. The reason why we suffer is because we're in the mind. And the mind is just intrusive. And most people come from a place of fear and lack or unworthiness. So this is where most people are hanging out, this thought movie, and it's pulling them from the present moment, which is consciousness. So how can we become more present? And it's these tools like breath or the cold or the sauna, connecting with our person when we train, connecting with our person when we do yoga, sunbathing, connecting with the sun, putting your feet on the ground, connecting with the earth and people. And oftentimes I think that we just don't know how to connect because our parents really didn't know how to connect with us. We're mostly disconnected through our devices, disconnected with our food, disconnected with so many things. So what we're really searching for through a lot of these external resources is connection, but we're really just getting high. And so you can really start asking yourself when
Yeah.
you do something, are you connecting or are you getting high? And connection is really what we're chasing. And you can use but you want to have the intentions of, okay,
Yeah.
this is helping me become more present so I can connect to this walk I'm about to take. And if you want to go deeper, you can connect to other things, cosmic things, deeper parts of yourself. And it's really quite beautiful when we maybe more so understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. Meditation is just simply learning how to deeply connect with parts of ourselves and everything around us. And if we can kind of fundamentally understand that, we kind of like then know what we're doing. I think a lot of people resist meditation because it's unknown, it's uncertainty. And, fear mixed with the unknown creates
Mm.
anxiety. And then that can even create panic. And then we can always really allow ourselves to talk ourselves out of doing this type of work because it's unknown, it's uncertain. Especially the ego is really good at manipulating us to not doing this type of work because it dissolves in the light, it dissolves in presence, it dissolves in consciousness. That's why we always feel a little bit of resistance and almost like a panic, even because the ego is literally dying.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why I wanted to really call out for the audience that the 60
Yeah.
minutes seems like a crazy long time to like to be to be with yourself, but like you're really not, because like Justin is guiding you through the whole thing. Because I know a lot of people like they're literally, they're either I think in addition to, people are either like they're seeking connection, but they're either trying to get high
Yes.
or they're trying to numb themselves. It's kinda
Yeah.
like the 2 sides of the same coin, like getting high or numbing, and I think a lot of people are like, "I would lose my fucking mind if I had to, like, be with myself, undivided attention for 60 minutes," and that's why I wanted to, like, call out for the people listening that it's like, you're gonna be, like, engaged in, like, some serious guided work, so you're not gonna be, like, left with yourself and, like, freaking out about, like, all
Yeah.
the
And you
stuff
can you
racing
can
through
start
your
off
mind.
slower if it's,
Um,
because the mind is, the ego can really influence the mind in a powerful way. It's so good at coming up with excuses. And if you identify with the mind, you will also accidentally identify with the ego. My personal belief on the ego is a
yeah,
manifestation of the mind. So I believe that children are born only to receive love and only to give love. They are born without ego. And a child's mind manifests and
yeah,
creates an ego due to the unsafe environment that it's born into. And because the mind doesn't understand or realize that it created or manifested this ego, when the ego has a thought, the mind thinks it's its thought. And if you identify with your mind as opposed to consciousness, you will always be duped by the ego. So if you wake up in the morning and you know that breath work will be really powerful for your person, the ego will chirp in and goes, start Monday. And because you still think with the mind, you think that you should start Monday.
yeah. I mean, my ego/mine was like, "Just tell Justin you
Isn't
didn't
that
have time
funny?
to
The
do it."
mind is so good at being duped
Yeah,
by the ego. And, but what's beautiful is over time, every time you
yeah,
get still, the ego dies. That's why everybody has these terms or ego deaths. So many of them. So every time you become still, the ego dies.
mhm,
And there's going to be resistance to that because it feels like a death. It feels uncomfortable because the ego is actually dying. It's no longer there. It's dissolving. And that's what you feel when you do plant medicine. You feel you feel that death. That's
mm,
part of you that's been hanging around for so long and making choices and manipulating and all these things just to survive. And it resists. It doesn't want you to get still. It doesn't want you to get present. The whisper in your ear. Have you ever seen the cartoon of the angel, the person, and the devil? Right. So the angel's the higher self, consciousness. The person's the person, and the devil's the ego. And that's what's happening a lot of times. You in the mind, a lot of times is so loud and so intrusive. It can't hear consciousness. It can't hear the higher self being like, go get still or eat healthy or get off your phone and the ego's like just been running the show because it's been around for so long and the mind doesn't even know it created it. So it's really fascinating starting to acknowledge that you're not the person. And then you can also see when the ego chirps up then. Like that's a big shift I feel. And it's a hard shift is no longer identifying with your sentient being. That's a tough one because
Yeah.
one, we've been doing it the entire time and it feels scary. It feels scary kind of becoming nobody.
Yeah. Help me frame for the audience, because used the word a lot, and I'm familiar kind of with what you're talking about, but like you refer to your person. Like, break that down for us, like, so
So
that makes
again, my
sense.
definition
Like,
of enlightenment is understanding that you aren't the person, right? So if you're not your thoughts and if you're not
mm,
your feelings and if you're not your emotions, what are you? Your soul or your consciousness experiencing this person. And if you're not your thoughts and if you're not your feelings or emotions, whose are they? The person's. So that's what's kind of neat. So you're experiencing this person but you're not the person, but you are the person because consciousness is everything. So it's kind of interesting. You can kind of flow in between consciousness and this
mm,
person, but then you can also step into a higher self and guide this person. Maybe has limitations, conditioning, beliefs, trauma, and you can guide them with love to let go of those limitations, beliefs, and trauma. And eventually, as you keep meditating, you keep visiting the quantum that is perfect, that is infinite, that is love. You upgrade your person. It's just literally upgrading, you peeking under the veil that is consciousness, right? So, and the person, this mind only has its six senses. It believes it only has five because it doesn't see the mind as a sixth sense, but it is. The mind is just thoughts, and you can use thoughts as a sixth sense to interpret the world or experience the world. So the person it can't comprehend consciousness until you start introducing it to consciousness every single day. And then eventually it realizes it's a part of this perfect, infinite, divine system. And over time, it realizes its possibilities, its capabilities. It can manifest, it can create, it can heal itself, it can change, it can forgive, it can accept. It's capable of all these things. It can let go. So yeah, it's really cool.
yeah, I just had a really interesting insight that I think helps, at least me think through it, and it might help the audience think through it. So, if you were to think of like yourself as an iPhone, right, that has all these like apps on it, and in order to install new apps that have new abilities, or to update an old app that is no longer functioning, or maybe even detrimental to the iPhone's operation, you have to connect to the internet, or
Uh,
in our case the
yeah,
quantum field, for the the person body. The hardware system has to connect with the like infinite intelligent, quantum field, cosmic consciousness, whatever, download these updates and these new apps in order to be a more higher functioning, you know, person. And like that's literally what I felt like was happening this morning is I was like connecting with the quantum field and
yeah,
getting like software
yes,
updates for my person. And I was like, awesome, this is great. Like it feels amazing. I feel like stuff is happening. I'm feeling energy moving throughout my body. I even felt like some stuff like being pulled out, like almost like it was uninstalling some like, malware, some software
yeah.
that was like hurting me. Like I literally had this part of the experience was like things were being pulled out of me, like
A
darker
little bit
things, darker
more.
matter. And yeah, absolutely. So it's weird. I've never thought about it like that. And that really helped me contextualize like what the kind of like breath work was doing. It's like we're connecting to the spiritual internet, and like we're getting like software
Yeah,
upgrades and new apps. Like
and you can really shift
which is really cool.
out. Like you said, like you know how you said your higher self is also you. You can kind of really see it as that, like the three selves, and the self say all lowercase self would be the person, and then capital S self be your higher self, and then
Mm-hmm.
all caps self would be source. And so the three selves, and there could
Mm.
be probably many selves, but obviously, but that's how I kind of see it. The three selves. You can kind of work with these three selves because you are all three selves. And another really cool analogy that is very helpful for people into starting to hold safe space for their person when they meditate, because when you meditate, you almost like slide into the higher self position. It's like kind of interesting as you kind of start getting, and then you hold space for the lower self, and you're kind of both selves at that moment. And so what I like to always use is this analogy of the dog and the dog pound and the dog rescuer. So the dog rescuer is the higher self, and the dog
Mm.
in the dog pound is the traumatized person, right? The self here, the human. And so the dog rescuer, the higher self comes in and is going to rescue the dog. And that dog doesn't even know it's being rescued. In fact, it could be aggressive. It could even try to bite the dog rescuer. It backs itself into a kennel. It's terrified because of its abuse and trauma. And then what does the higher self need to do? It needs to create a safe space for it. It needs to feed it healthy food and give it a warm bed and take it on long walks. And to understand that dog that's been traumatized at first, it doesn't know how to receive love. And it doesn't know how to act properly. Even it could come home and pee on the carpet, chew on the couch, and pull on the leash. And what do? You actually have more patience, have more love, have more compassion. And that's what you're doing with your person, especially if they come from severe trauma. Like, really understand to take space for that person to process their emotions, they're going to be afraid. And you can slide into that higher self and you can guide yourself into healing, into becoming, not even becoming because you are love, but to remember that you are love, that you are a part of all of this. And that seems to be really helpful for a lot of people when they're doing this work is kind of, you're both roles. You're your mother and the child. You're the father and the child. Yeah. It's really cool when you hold space for your person.
Yeah, I really like that because it empowers one to be more
Mm.
compassionate with themselves, right? So, like, if you were to, have a child or even a dog, the way we talk, like many of us talk to ourselves in our mind, we would never talk to our child like. We would never say the shit that we say to
Yeah.
ourselves to our own
Uh,
child. Yet, like, many of us, like, all day, are literally tearing ourselves down. Like, you're stupid, you're fat, you're not good enough. Like, what the fuck did you just do? Why'd you make that mistake? You should have done better. Like, you know, you should be making more money. You
and what's
should
fun,
be,
they're not even saying you,
younger.
they're
You should
saying
be
I.
older.
That's the part that gets really wild. They're saying I
Yeah.
because they only identify with the self. That's why it's so important to understand how this all works, enlightenment, I think. And that way you can really approach this from a much different way, realizing there's more to you, and there's parts of you that need guidance, and you can hold guidance for that person so that you can show this person who has these intrusive thoughts, that says all these shameful things and feels shame and guilt and unworthy. And you can hold space of loving container, like the most love that you can ever comprehend, this container. And then you expose and you show that love to this person who has this conditioning that that it is unworthy, that it isn't enough, that it doesn't deserve love. And that's just a story in the mind. It's not true. It's just a story. It's just playing within the mind. It's just a thought movie. And if you believe you are only the thoughts, you'll get stuck in that thought movie. And the only way that you can get yourself out of that thought movie
Yeah.
is through stillness. And so breath, the cold, the heat,
Yeah.
whatever can allow you, the plant medicine, whatever can allow you to zoom out and remember who you are, remember what you are, that you are this universe, and that you can hold space for anything, including this beautiful sentient being that is also the universe. Just needs to remember.
Awesome. Let's talk about some of the other modalities like cold
Yeah.
and heat. Like, how would one use Specifically, I'm actually really curious about heat, like using the sauna. I've definitely, transcended and dropped in with cold. I think it's pretty easy to do pretty quickly in a ice bath. We can cover that, but specifically to be selfish for a minute, like how would one use sauna to kind of
Well,
do some of this
you
work?
can definitely transcend through sauna. I think if once you start kind of getting good about being in the stillness, it does become a little bit easier. At first, I think sauna and cold work is about first getting uncomfortable and sitting in the discomfort. And that's really great way to kind of approach those two.
Mm,
So the sauna and the cold are both great because again, it really kind of will pull your mind from thinking into focusing on like, oh man, it's really hot, or oh man, this is really cold. So it kind of makes you focus your attention on one single thing as opposed to all of these thoughts. So it's a great tool. Again, maybe give your mind something to focus on
mm,
for a period of time. And when you do that enough, you start kind of retraining your mind to be a little bit more present in whatever it is that it's doing. So the cold, like you mentioned, it's kind of hard to think about anything else when you get into the cold. And then the next part, the cold, it's a wonderful way because your person thinks it fell in ice. The person thinks it's in danger. The person is uncomfortable. It wants to get out, right? It's uncertain what's happening. And so then you slide into your higher self while you're in that tub and you go, hey, you're okay. You're okay. This is done on purpose. We're doing this on
mm,
purpose so that you can understand that you're okay in all uncomfortable situations, that you can stay calm in uncomfortable situations, that you can sit in uncomfortable situations. And you have that conversation with your person. And then they'll start to listen. You can even tell your person to heat itself up like Wim Hof does, right? Yeah. So it's a really cool
yeah.
way to start having those conversations. It's the same thing like when we go to the gym, like, hey, come on, one more rep. Like who's talking to the person, right?
Mm.
Who's talking to the person? Yeah. Like you
I
got
know it's totally true. Yeah, I do a similar thing. I'll do a similar thing with the ice bath. I'll be like, all right, just jump in for like a minute or two. And just like, and I'm
yeah,
relating this to kind of my breathwork experience this morning. Like, just do a round or two of breathing, then like you can go do something else. But then, when I jump into the ice, like after about a minute, like that dialogue between, my all lowercase self and my capital S self is like, hey, you're okay. And then,
yeah,
the two of them
yeah.
agree, like, okay, let's stay for a bit longer. Like we can do, let's see, let's get to 5 minutes. And, I'll usually get to five and they'll be like, cool, let's do eight. And, then it's like, okay, let's do 10 or 11. And, I could probably go longer, but I'm still kind of like newer to ice bathing. So I don't want to like go for like 30 minutes and like get hypothermia. So I usually cap it at like 15. But like, I remember the first time I did like a true ice bath was actually in Tulum, of all places. And no, that's not true. I've done some ice baths at home, but in my bathtub, but there wasn't as much ice as this one had. And I jumped in. I could barely last 90 seconds. And I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. And I got out. And now, like, I can easily do like 10 to 15 minutes. Now, I'm never like, yeah, let's go do 10 to 15 minutes. It's usually like, just
It's
jump in for
convers-
like one
yeah,
to
it's
two
still a
minutes
conversation with
and take it from
you.
there. And I literally feel like
I was just going to say our
go
person is
ahead.
out getting comfortable and it likes comfort, but it doesn't know any better. And that's why like doing hard is so important. Our person can really, really
Mm,
get used to being domesticated. It can be used to being comfortable and being domesticated is not really that great. And I think it's also why a lot of us suffer is that we are very, very domesticated, but we are once hunter gatherers and used to cold weather and used to hard things. And it's what allowed us to be so great. And so it's good to be aware that our person can really choose to be domesticated and likes perfect temperature and just throw on a sweater or a soft bed and all these type of things. And, can take the escalator and the elevator, and just it gets so chill with it. So it's being aware that this isn't good for our person is really, really important. So leaning into these tough things and having these conversations and getting uncomfortable, whether it's cold, the heat, training, all of it, the breath. It's really being able to step outside of the self and hold space for it.
Hey there, just a few words about the incredible show sponsors for today's episode, and then we'll dig right back in. This show is brought to you by Feel Free from Botanic Tonics. This product is unlike anything I've ever had before. No joke. It's made with kava root and other ancient plants, and just half a shot gives me this incredible sense of focused flow and productivity. And I love to take just half a shot right before I work out. I take it with my pre-workout, and it takes my workouts to the next level. It is seriously unlike anything I've ever had. It's also an incredible productivity tool for any big work projects that you have, or long periods of time where you just need to be super focused in flow state and get a lot of shit done. So if you want to give this a shot, you can go to botanictonics.com and use code DRAGON at checkout to get 40% off your first order. No joke, 40% off with code DRAGON. That's Feel Free from botanictonics.com, code DRAGON. Feel free, feel good. Yeah. I want to talk with you about energy exchanges, as well as get your thoughts on movies and music and TV and social media, and kind of like that energy exchange, and kind of just your thoughts around there, especially like music, because I'm going to let you take it, and I'll chime in with my own experience.
This one's actually a big one for me, since I believe everything is energy. We are all one. We are all connected. Conscious consumerism is probably the most important thing to me. Conscious consumerism. And that's from the food I eat, to the music I listen to the businesses I support. And I realized if I can become aware, if I can become conscious of how I consume, it can completely really change how I feel each and every day, and also like my own reality, my own world. And so I think it's very, very important to understand the intentions behind things, whether it's our food, our music, the furniture we buy, or the businesses that we support. What were their intentions? What were their intentions when making this product? What were their intentions when making this song? Because that energy, since we're all one, comes back to you. And if you take your money, which is energy because you worked for it. So money is currency, it's energy. And you take that money and you do an energy exchange for a product. And that product was made with non-loving intentions. And in fact, possibly causes suffering while making the product. That's the energy that you take on. So whether it's music, whether it's food, furniture, or supporting companies, it's really nice to become aware of how they're operating, so that you make sure that you are supporting companies or consuming with things that are coming from loving intentions, mindfulness. And that's my biggest thing is just that. That's the reason why I meditate, so I can become more mindful of my conscious consumerism, so that I can be very, very smart about my energy exchanges in all areas. Like all my furniture, or almost all of my furniture, is all custom made by individuals who put their love into it. So the energy in my home with my furniture is really nice. Much different than if you were to say, just maybe buy some furniture from IKEA, and IKEA makes their products in China. And China is a big supporter of slave labor. So if you are unaware of this, and we go through, and most of us are, and it's perfectly okay. But if you are filling your house with products made by people who are ethical, and you take your energy, your money, and you purchase these products, and you take these products and you bring them into your home, or you put them on your body if they're clothes, or you eat the food, or you listen to the music, you're bringing that energy into you. into your home. And a lot of people, I think, feel anxious and even depressed just from this non-awareness in itself. Especially with food, whether you're eating plants or animals, how is it being done? Is it a regenerative farm? Is it done with mindfulness? Is it done with morals? Is it done with ethics? Or is it not? And the same thing with music. Why is the music being made? What frequencies is it played on? How is it supposed to really make you feel? What are they talking about? What are they saying in the music? And so it's been really nice becoming mindful of all these things, because I believe that's one of the biggest contributors of how I feel every day, and the way my home feels and the way my body
Yeah.
feels and the way my
April
mind
of
is.
2014, I started a daily meditation practice, transcendental meditation, which is a mantra-based meditation that I got trained in it. And probably within like, I don't know, a few months of starting that, I couldn't listen
Yeah.
to most of the hip hop that I used to listen to unless it had a positive message within it. So, like, I'm not against hip hop at all. Like, I think there's some incredible, you know, positive hip hop music out there. But unfortunately, I would say a lot of the stuff that I grew up listening to, and even the stuff today that is often, considered very popular, the
Yeah.
energy is actually like super low
I
vibration,
agree.
and even potentially like harmful. And I know people like think I'm crazy when I say that because, you know, I naturally came to it partially from I think my meditation made me aware of it, and then my personal study of just like self development. It's like input equals output. So like if you're putting in like, you know, fucking bitches and slang and drugs, into your mind, like what kind of energy are you consuming when it's like coming in that form? And what kind of output is that going to create in your life? And so ultimately, I just basically stopped listening to any and all music. It's not just hip hop, like any type, like rock and roll, like any type of music that has a negative energy frequency.
Same
I
thing with
just
food.
don't listen to
The
anymore.
same thing with food. Wow. Like, know where your food's coming from, why it's being
Yep.
made, how it's being made. And it's the same thing with food. If you're eating low vibrational food, if you're eating food that has caused suffering, whether it's to planets or to the planet or to the animals, you're taking in that frequency, you're taking in that vibration. The same thing with supporting companies. Like, pay attention to the company for it and how they make their product and the way they make their
Yeah.
product. If they aren't doing business with love, you're supporting that energy and you're going to pull that in. Even like television shows, pay attention, like the platforms that we use. It's really powerful stuff. It can feel a little bit overwhelming, I think, when people start really kind of diving into this. And the reason for that is that I think a lot of these things that we indulge in without realizing it, it's part of our coping mechanisms for our anxiety and or depression. So these ones are a bit hard for people to kind of like really look at and then make
Yeah.
powerful changes, because it's hard, because then they like are stuck with their thoughts again if they start like removing some of the things that they cope with, whether it's food, television shows, or music. But the same music is such a powerful one because of the words, the lyrics, the hertz that things are played at. It's really powerful stuff. And yeah, it was one of the most important transitions for me, was becoming more mindful of the energy exchanges that I do throughout my day.
Yeah. A couple thoughts. One, this is where like I absolutely love how you frame the like, are you connecting or are you getting high or are you numbing? Because like many people are either using
Yes.
food to either get high or numb. Like, people will numb their emotions with
Yes.
food, or they will literally get high on food. With like the sugar and, the processed, it just like it lights you up and then it like drops you to the floor. And one of the things I really liked in one of your other interviews is you talked about kind of like this almost like playful spiritual growth, where like when you have these realizations or like, oh, like I've totally been unconscious there and now I'm starting to bring consciousness to it. You don't like beat yourself up about it. You more kind of like approach it with like a sense of like playfulness, like help me like illustrate that or fill that with color for me so people can understand, because I don't want people to listen to the show and be like, oh fuck, all the music I listen to and all the television I watch is like terrible for me and I'm like totally fucking up in life. Like how can they approach it in a way that
But
is a little bit more
yeah,
uh
yeah, it's just a
less
perspective. It's like
intense.
understanding
Yeah,
we
more
don't
fun.
know, and we're all learning. We're all trying to be better, and that's really what we want to do. And it takes time to become aware, and it takes a lot of work to become aware. And giving yourself lots of grace and empathy and forgiveness and acceptance as we go through this is only going to help it. If we really kind of get into creating lots of shame and or guilt during this process, it's not very good. It's actually the opposite. I feel keeping it light and keeping it fun, understanding that the only way we learn is through these experiences, right? We just don't know. So you have to experience all these things to see how it aligns with
Mm,
you. And as we do this work, we kind of raise our vibration, we raise our frequency. And then that's why when you started meditating and then you would hear the old music you would listen to, you're at a different frequency now than that music. And so you became aware, and so that's the first step, is like getting into the work so that you can raise your frequency, you can raise your vibration, become more love, you become more light. And so then when you go out into this world that is mostly low vibration, you'll start feeling it unconsciously, consciously or unconsciously. You'll start feeling, oh, this doesn't feel right. Oh, this song I really don't care for anymore. Like, oh, you know what? This food that I used to love, I don't really like it anymore. And like it's kind of like how I was evolving when I would do the mushrooms or what have you. It wasn't like a hard like lesson. It wasn't like something like came and told me directly, but it was just like, oh, you know what? Like recycling felt better. Like eating less food and being less gluttony felt better.
mm,
And it was just a feeling. And because you're operating at a higher frequency, you are now more aware. And even with people, like you have people that start doing conscious work and raising their frequency and their breath work, and then they realize they have a friend or a partner even that is at a different vibration now. And they're like, oh man, like I don't really align with this person's values or views or what we do for fun. Like all of a sudden going out to the bar doesn't feel that great, and you'll start going to a yoga spot instead or something like that on Friday. Your time playing music and dancing
hmm,
in your home or something, and or watching a fire, because it starts to align with you as you do this work. You'll kind of, your paradigm really does start shifting. But the trick really is just have fun with it. Like you have to experience it for you to know. And so go through the experiences as many times as you need to. As many times as you need to. There's no as wrong or right. There's no such thing as wrong
yeah.
or right. And that's really important too. Like there's nothing that you have to follow. And even if you choose to not follow it, that's okay too. Like, don't have any judgment. And yeah, like there is no wrong path. There's
Yeah.
just your path. And however you want to live it, but live it and, authentically.
Yeah. I'm curious if any TV shows that you think are more conscious or higher energy come to mind, because like I'll find them, but then I finish the series and then it's like it takes me so much work to find the next higher energy TV series. And like I have to wade through like the first episode or two of like a bunch of super low energy TV until I find that next one. I'm just curious, like if you could give an example in your own mind of like a high vibrational television show, and maybe like an example or two of that, and like a low vibrational TV show. And we might like ruffle some feathers here, but I
So
think
I'm on the,
it's
what
good to
probably
get
most people
people
call the
thinking.
extreme end of the spectrum with this. In the beginning, I wasn't, obviously. I kind of went through the same thing that you were just saying. Like you find like one show, like, oh yeah, that show was pretty dope. And it kind of like aligned with how I feel, doing this conscious work. And then you kind of find yourself shuffling through shows. And then there's another step. You then look at the platform itself, and that's another step. Yeah. And so I made that step a long time ago, and that's going to be a tough one for a
Mm.
lot of people because, again, these platforms or these TV shows, I think, are a lot of ways people spend their downtime, how they relieve stress, how they cope with their anxiety, how they remove themselves from their thoughts. So I think TV in general isn't just really a great way to spend most of your time. I'm not saying TV is bad, but I think much, much less than what we're used to or customized to is I actually don't watch TV. So you go through these levels. And so like have again fun with,
Mm.
like you said, like, oh, first, having a few shows here and there, and then I think as you do this work it'll be a little bit harder to find them, and then eventually you'll be like, oh, I don't like the platform. Actually, the platform and what they're supporting and their values isn't very good, and what they're actually promoting isn't very good, so then you end up removing the platform. So with saying that, there's pretty much one platform that's actually good out there, it seems, and it's the Gaia platform. GAIA. It's a good platform, and it's about consciousness and stuff like that.
Mm.
It gets into a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. It's a wonderful app, a very mindful app. And so that's kind of like where I kind of leaned into. And I don't have a TV in the living room. I don't have a TV. And I don't have a couch either.
Mm.
So it's like kind of like a space to kind of hang out and be. And I'm more in the space now where I understand like how I really want to spend my time is to be more present, be more beingness with less TV, less kind of stimulation, less simulation type of experience. But like I said, like I'm on the way opposite end of the spectrum now, where like how you said, like it's a combination of just kind of going through these motions. I think you're going to come to the point where you're like, damn, there's really nothing on anymore, and then you're like, you'll put down the remote and you're like, I'll go for a walk. And like the walk starts feeling better than TV, or doing yoga with your girl really feels good, or you put on music instead and you're dancing instead. And that's how you spend 90% of your evenings. And like, yeah, there's that little 10% where you're like, oh, a new movie came out. Let's watch it. It's like the paradigm really starts shifting, like what you do on your evening. What are
Mm.
you doing on your Friday night? What are you doing your Saturday night as you do this work? As you keep shifting in consciousness, as you keep shifting in vibration. And so like, yeah, it's really cool. Like my evenings are mostly filled with like my yoga, taking my dog for a really, really long walk and spending time and connecting with them. Or like this evening, I'm going over a friend's house and we're cooking dinner together. And then we'll go hit up a sauna and cold plunge. So like the way you spend your time does end up shifting as you do this work. And like we mentioned just a bit earlier, give yourself a lot of grace as you go through this transition. There's a little bit of back and forth, and it's hard to let go of something. I mean, these televisions, they're not bad, but I think we're just like the pendulum needs to swing quite a bit the other way as far as like how much time we're actually using these devices, how much time are we really disconnected? And what are our intentions with watching television? I think that's the most important question is like, why are we looking for shows? Is it purely because we really want to be entertained and we really love this show? Or is it because our mind is intrusive and it's hard to be present? And so that's why we watch TV. That's why we're on our phones. That's why we do the things that we do. In a way, I think they're more so distractions than actual entertainment and or pleasure. But that doesn't mean like movies are bad or TV's bad. I think just a lot of people are acting mostly unconscious when they're watching 10 episodes in a row and then trying to find it. Yeah. So I think it's just a journey. It's just a journey,
Yeah.
and like having fun with it.
Yeah, I really love how you kind of framed it and also where you're at in context to, I guess, my own experience. So, on a whole, I don't watch very much TV because I pretty much just relegate it to the like, I'll watch like some shows with my wife on the weekend. Just as kind of like a way, and, it's either a movie or a show, and we'll find a show that like is really good for us. And one that came to mind to me, and I don't know if you've seen it, but in my mind is like high vibration because it's
Yeah,
really
I bet
positive energy is
we're
the
watching
show Ted
that episode.
Lasso,
I've watched that before.
um,
It's a good like
which is,
non-drama. It seems like right. I remember watching that episode or that TV series. I think it was like 2 years ago or something like that when the first one came out. And I remember watching it and I was like, this show is actually a good show because you would think where right when drama was about to hit, all of a sudden like love and
yeah,
logic came in and they resolved it and it was really quite beautiful. And I'm like, I remember saying that literally like, and there was a time where I was kind of removing TV. I was like, why doesn't TV work like this? It's like so good. And then like, we went this, I remember I went through those same episodes and then tried to find another one
yeah.
and they're just awful. They're drama and creating all these things. But yeah, there are some ones that are out there for sure.
Yeah, and I love how your emphasis is on just like having grace and being compassionate with yourself. Like I know for sure, like at times, like I'm still watching shows that are like on a whole lower vibration and they're lowering my vibration. Like which like in a sense means I need to do even more high vibrational energy exchange. I need to meditate more. I need to consume, more high vibrational, content, whether that's, books or programs, working with coaches, being parts of masterminds, doing more yoga, etc. So
No,
I don't want anyone to think I'm perfect or
I have a
Justin is
phone. I have
perfect.
a
Like
phone, and that
we're
phone
all work in
can definitely
progress.
cool me in just like a TV, and it does. It does. One of the things that I'm really trying to work on. I think intentions are really powerful, is what we're really talking about here, and they're everything. So if you are on autopilot and you
Mm,
come home from a hard day of work, and we just kind of on autopilot turn on the TV and zone out because we're anxious or all these feelings and emotions are within us and we actually don't sit with those things. That stuff kind of really builds a lot of anxiety within us. So I think intentions is incredibly powerful. TV isn't bad. These phones aren't bad. It's part of the human experience is this kind of stuff. But I think a lot of times most of us are operating without intentions. And so when you really start operating with intentions like, hey, do I really or should I really just sit down and watch all of these episodes? Or, hey, I'm going to sit down and actually watch this episode because I am enjoying this show and I want to watch it with my partner and we both really like it. And it's that intention behind it, right? That is really powerful. And like for me, I really love the intentions aspect because I bought a projector and a little movie screen. So I did that on purpose because it allowed me to take an extra step with intentions. Like if I want to watch something, I have to set it up. It was a nice little way to kind of train myself to like not just grab the clicker or put it on or
mm.
what have you. If I want to watch a movie, I have to like make room, bring the projector out, bring down the screen, set it all up, bring the stool, prop it up so it's all nice and perfect. And then I can really have these wonderful intentions of why I'm doing things. And I think that's really what it comes down to is like whatever it is that we're doing, do we have intentions and are we aware of why we're doing it and why are we? And that's really powerful. Same thing with food. It's the same thing with food. Like when we come home and we just
Yeah.
kind of eat, are we on autopilot or are we actually hungry? Should we actually eat? Is this food actually any good? Being less reactive, I think, when we are anxious, and it is a really powerful place. I actually am working on being less reactive with food. I'm really good about when I'm in my home because it's structured in such a way where I remove the reactiveness. There's nothing really like something that I could just snack on right away if I'm, kind of in my space. But like, it's funny. It's like you go on an airplane. Like I don't eat any of the food in the airport or on the airplane, but a lot of times when they come down the aisle and they'll just offer you something, we're so reactive. We're like, yeah, sure. We just grab it and then we'll eat it. And like, oh, it wasn't even real food. It was processed. We didn't even want it. It actually didn't even taste good. And it's kind of funny how reactive we are due to our anxiety and our fears. And when we're operating from fear and anxiety, our prefrontal cortex isn't online. And so I think a lot of times most of us are kind of in these things, watching these episodes, eating poor food, engaging in things that we really don't want to due to the fact that we're in a fear-based mindset, anxiety and or panic. And when that happens, we start operating from like the smallest part of our brain that is just trying to like survive in some way and to feel okay. And so being less reactive is a really, really powerful thing that I've really started focusing on. And I noticed, like I said, like for me, it's food, especially if I'm like not in my structured setting. And or if someone brings something in, it's like I'm so much easier to like, oh, a whole plate of brownies. And then I'll eat like 5 of them and be like, bro, like, what the fuck? Like, we're completely full. You just ate all this sugar. Now it's going to make you feel this particular way. So it's like a trigger behavior result, which is kind of funny. And I noticed when I was traveling through Guatemala, like I almost we went to this really great hike, and the camp that organizes everything for us, they also like create a meal for you at the end of the hike. And it's so funny, like they just brought this food that I wouldn't eat in a million years. It's like processed like noodle soup with like chicken in there that's been in there for probably 10 years, like and without even really brings it up, and I'm cold, I'm tired, and it's hot, and it's like salty, and it's all this bread. I'm starting to eat it, and I realized like I would never fucking eat this soup. This is chicken noodle soup in a styrofoam container that was heated up in a fucking microwave in a million years. Like I wouldn't buy it from the store. I wouldn't have it within my home, but I was so reactive due to I just did this thing. I wasn't thinking. I was hungry. I was cold, and I just grabbed it. And it's really kind of neat starting to recognize when we're not operating from a more intelligent self.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. So we see just how human you still are. You haven't fully elevated to the next plane of
I'm off,
existence yet. So
I'm still very awful with like my phone and things like food still. So I still struggle with it. It's still a work in progress for sure.
yeah. Yeah. But I think being playful, I mean, you're laughing at yourself at how like ridiculous it is. And I think showcasing that and modeling that for other people is like, hey, if you're listening to super shitty music or watching television that is really like not adding life to your life, then like just laugh at yourself and be like, Jesus Christ, like, all right, well, let's, yeah. So I think one tool that you could share, kind of in this case, because I think people use, you know, TV and movies, like you said, as a way to relax or be with another person, but have to like be like super mentally engaged. And I know you have this thing that you call your presence board. Can you share that tool with us?
Yeah. So I think all of us are really good about not being able to be present. I think we are born into a unique paradigm where we're overstimulated and we're never actually present, and we're really used to instant gratification, which is especially as children, with children's receiving iPads and phones at an earlier age, it really kind of pushes this even more. So what I created was a presence board, and it's essentially a board written with a bunch of different tools, techniques, or modalities that need my attention, that need my presence. So it's more so of it's a board created to retrain the brain. So the brain is deeply conditioned, like as I mentioned, to be overstimulated in every single way possible. Everything is vying for your attention. Everything is consistently like, bright, loud, beeping at you, whether it's your phone, the food, everything. And so it's really good to become aware of this. And then so if you become aware that you are overstimulated and you are essentially addicted to that, and the chase for the dope. And, at one point I remember I was like on my phone, smoking a joint, eating food, listening to music all at the same time. And I'm like, oh man, what are you doing, bro? Like, be present with your fucking food. Like, and if you're not going to be present with your food, be present with this joint. And if you're not going to be present with your food and this joint, be present with the music. Like, you're not even anywhere. You're not in your food. You don't even know how many times you just hit this joint. You're plenty high enough and you're fucking listening to music, but you really don't hear it. And like, what are you doing right now? And so yeah, I created a board for me to start retraining my person. And things like yoga is on there, the cold plunge is on there, breath work is on there, walks, sunbathing, making love, singing, dancing, campfires, all the stuff that just requires your presence and your attention. And I started filling my day up with that. I don't have to do these things. There's no pressure. And if I only do one, there's no or guilt. But I created this board to simply just check off stuff. And or if I have downtime and my old self is like grabbing this fucking phone and it wants to just be on this phone or it wants to just go watch TV, I can be like, oh, wait. There's better things to do. I could become present because that's what we really want. We really want to be present. We want to connect. And a lot of times the only reason why we're jumping on these devices is either to connect through the device or no. But really we're getting the device because we're doing it not with intention. And so I really love like knocking off like 7, 10 to maybe 12 of these things every single day. And it just keeps my person really finely tuned. It keeps him present and mindful. And then I love that because that I'm also much more aware with my intentions because I'm always training him to be present in this very non-present world. And so when I do to go indulge or engage in other things that usually aren't on that board, like a movie, I'm making the choice to. Or when you want to have a pizza, I'm making the choice to. I want the pizza. I want to enjoy this particular meal and engorge myself. And it's with that choice. Or I want to completely unplug and watch a 3-hour Avatar movie or Dune or something like that. And that's that choice. And it's with intention. And then you really can enjoy it. It's like, it's phenomenal. Like you don't feel any particular way after that. You don't feel bad about the pizza if you really wanted the pizza and it's those intentions as opposed to maybe just ordering it and eating it without intentions and you're using it more so for a coping mechanism.
Hey there, just a few words about the incredible show sponsors for today's episode, and then we'll dig right back in. Today's show is brought to you by Fit Rich Vegan. If you're ready to get in the best shape of your life, double your income, and 10x your savings and investments, then this is the coaching program for you. But wait a minute, Dragon. Isn't this your coaching program? Heck yeah, it is. I spent the last 8 years mastering my fitness and my finances, and I've built an incredible coaching program with an incredible team to help you get the body of your dreams and finally achieve that level of financial success that you've been seeking. So if you want to find out if you're a good fit for the program, go to fitrichvegan.com and book your free consultation today. Or you can just DM me on Instagram with the words FitRichVegan, and we can chat about if it's going to be a good fit for you. I'm committed to empowering people to actually achieve their fitness and financial goals. I spent the last 20 years trying to figure this out on my own. And what I realized is the key to doing it is not doing it alone. You have to have coaches, you have to have mentors, and you have to be a part of masterminds. And that's exactly what Fit Rich Vegan has. It has coaches, mentors, and it is a mastermind. So again, if you're ready to book your free consultation today, go to fitrichvegan.com or drop me a DM on Instagram. Yeah, one thought, and this is a tool I'll use. Like if I want to go watch 2 or 3 episodes of a show, I'll be like, okay, you can do that, but like go spend 15 minutes reading like a self-development book and then you can go enjoy it. So like I make myself work for it. So because like I feel like I'm constantly kind of like working on myself. Like I really enjoy the process of, upgrading my person, the never ending pursuit of upgrading my person. But I also it's almost like, like how to train your dragon or how to train your avatar or like how to train your dog is like, you make the dog sit before you give it a treat,
Yes.
right? Like you make it like do something like good before you give it the treat. And like we're the same. Like if you just like, hey, like we're all in this like, I think ultimate, goal is to not even have a desire to watch, mindless or low vibrational TV, but like while you're on that journey, have compassion and then like, train it. Like, oh, you want a little dog biscuit, a little Netflix TV show? Go read like a book or listen to 15 minutes of like a podcast that is gonna like elevate your consciousness, or go take a walk and listen to a podcast. Like if you can't like sit still, like
I think what we find out during that process is that we really enjoy the other stuff a little bit more over time.
yeah, what happens to me a lot is I'll go like make myself do the self development work, and then I end up doing that for like 2 or 3 hours. And, like, I meant to only do it for, like, 15 minutes, and then I
Yeah.
do it for, like, 2 or 3 hours, and then I'm like, "Okay, cool, I'll watch 1 show instead of
Yeah.
4
Very cool. Yeah.
episodes," or, like, 1 episode instead of 4 episodes. Yeah. I'm just curious, though, because one of the things that occurred to me is I feel like I need to create a list for myself of things that don't take a lot of, like, mental or physical energy, but are like positive, right? So like I will often use like a few episodes of a show as kind of like a way to
Yeah.
like rest but not sleep. Whereas if I read, like I read books for fun as well as for like a self-development. So like I read like fantasy and science fiction. But if I read one of those and I'm tired, within like 3 minutes I fall asleep. Like, no joke, I just, like, immediately fall asleep if I'm tired, if I start reading something for fun. And so what I've been trying to figure out for myself is, like, okay, if I don't wanna go to sleep because I wanna, like, go to bed at a later time and not kind of, like, fuck up my sleep rhythm, like, what are things that I can do that are higher vibrational, but, like, you know what I mean? Because when I'm, like, super tired, like, I don't necessarily wanna go on a walk, or, I don't wanna, like, sing or dance, you know what I mean? But, like, and so I'll read, like, the only thing I can think of for me is, like, reading, a like, some sort of self-development book. But I'm like, what are the other things? Because I can, like, just sit there and, like, consume it, and maybe I skip the exercises and I do the exercises the next morning or something. But I'm just, like, curious if you have any other ideas of, like, what are things, like, someone like me could do, besides, like, listening to that podcast or read
Yeah.
that book,
I mean, that's a great question.
before I
Usually
go
my
have
evening,
my,
I can
like,
just
dog
probably just
biscuit.
more so share what I do in the evening is I really like doing an extra 30 minutes of meditation. And it's a different type of meditation though. It's just a practice
Mm,
of the actual stillness, the one that really people don't like do, but when you make it about that, like a fun little game within yourself, it becomes kind of fun. So like sitting in lotus position or Indian style is a little bit uncomfortable for me just because of the way my hips are shaped. So I have to elevate my butt, like most people, quite a little bit, and then keeping really good posture for a duration of time can become very challenging. You start feeling it in your lumbars and in your back, and you feel a burning sensation and stuff like that. And so I've been really wanting to get really good about not moving in this position, like stay so perfectly straight, beautiful chest out, and just staying there and focusing on a specific thing. Like either my breathing, and it's just light breathing, just breathing normally, or the tip of my nose or whatnot. And then what'll end up happening is like the burning sensation of like my posture will start to kick in. And then I'm like, okay, like my body really wants to move right now, wants to move that out because it's starting to feel it. And then I have to sit in it. I just sit in it and I just sit in it. Actually, remember I don't know, have you seen the movie Dune, the new one? A really good movie. And there's a scene where the
yeah.
the main star, the character, the young guy, he meets like his mysterious grandmother. And he goes in and she like commands him to like kneel. And then she puts like that little needle up to his neck when his hand's in that box, and the hand creates pain. And so here's the needle. And if he moves, he dies. And so I really love that scene because the person wants to react. The person wants to move. It's uncomfortable. It really wants to like not sit in this position anymore. But if you can override it, if you can embrace it and like observe the pain as opposed to giving into the pain or becoming the pain or whatever it is for you in that position, even possibly just sitting still can be that difficult, right? And just being in that stillness and just like, and your thoughts are coming and going, and that's perfectly okay. Like it's to like, just like watch them come and go. And so I've been really having fun with that. And I know that doesn't sound very, very much fun for people, but like it's always perspective. So it's like I'm like excited to do it tonight. Even like, all right, I can't wait to like have a smaller pillow for me to sit in this position and like keep perfect posture for 40 minutes this time, you know. And I started out with 20 minutes, and I would fail, and I was like, oh man, my back is so tight and stuff like. But I think that's a really great way to spend some quality time with ourselves and discipline ourselves in lots of ways. But I love also just simple stuff like sunbathing, to be honest. Like that's like the easiest one. If you really want to have a positive moment, go connect with the sun, put your feet on the grass and just sit there, or have a fire. If you have access to making a fire, that's a really, really beautiful way to kind of just be and just enjoy it. It's almost like a trance for us, for our person, is these fires. So
Yeah.
yoga is my other big one. But again, like that could be a little bit more challenging. It was in the beginning for me, but yoga before bed with that 30-minute meditation and like maybe checking out stuff like that is kind of like what I normally do in the evening. I also love cooking. That's a kind of the big thing. I don't really order out. And so cooking is another wonderful way I spend my time in the evenings as well. And then also like hanging out with my dog. So like, yeah, it's, yeah, I imagine some of these are still probably not very fun for some people, but again,
Yeah. What I'm thinking, like, that I want to do, and maybe you and some of our other friends can help us, is almost create like a higher vibrational playlist of like TV shows and movies. So like ones that are actually, like Ted Lasso or Avatar or Dune, ones that are like, so it's like, okay, like I want downtime with my partner or by myself. I don't want to sit in lotus and sit in the pain. I don't want to like read a personal development book and like maybe like start creating like a living, breathing document that like you, me, and some other people can start to add some shows and movies that like, our audience members can like just like, DM us, and we'll just like, here's the link, and people can like have that list, and we'll just keep like populating it as we find new movies and shows, because there are ones out there, because there are super like high vibe conscious directors and creators out there that are making it, but they're like the 1% of the shit that is out there. Like most of it, 99% of it, maybe
and it's got a lot of
95.
cool stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of good stuff. Also, another really great show is on
Yeah.
YouTube. It's called After School. Really awesome stuff. It's like this wonderful this digital art, and they tell a story while they're drawing. And it's these really wonderful philosophers from Ram Dass to Alan Watts to Eckhart Tolle to just these brilliant, brilliant minds. And they sketch out exactly what they're saying during the storytelling of all of this. And it's like one of the most beautiful things. And they're like 15 to 20-minute clips, and you learn so much in such a fun way. So After School, and it's SKOOL. Really, really, that I really do enjoy watching. As I mentioned, Gaia is really fun because I love learning about ancient civilizations, and I love learning about space and like how it all works. And so like they're fully loaded on that, which is a lot of fun. And also there's really, really great like 5-minute, 6-minute Ram Dass clips that are just fucking amazing ways to see things, shift in perspective. And it's done with like these music and these powerful scenes. So there are definitely some options out there where you can kind of like learn and get cozy and unplug and really enjoy things. A lot of times when my friends come over and we're hanging out, that's the first thing they're like, hey, you guys want to go watch like an after school special? And they're like, yeah, sure. We all grab like the pillows from my living room. We bring it into my technology room and we'll watch some stuff in there and we'll just sit down and we'll just like have a blast, like just watching this cartoon, but we're learning in the process as well. Sound bath, buy some sound bowls
That's a good
and
one.
give
Yeah.
each other sound baths. That's
Yeah.
another big thing that I love to do with whether it's my partner or friend. Sound bowls are really dope. They'll zen you out, no problem. Music, like buy conga drums. Like that's a big thing that I do. And also my friends, like I'll have them over and we'll play just music. We'll put on some awesome tribal music and we all have instruments and we're just jamming out playing music and it's a really good time. And yeah, so there's some cool options that we do besides sitting in lotus position, going through the thing.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave the audience with like, yeah,
It's
you have
so
to
fun. That's
become like
hilarious.
a
That's the one I
yogi
opened
and
with.
like
There's like
sit in
all the other
lotus
ones like
pose every
sound
evening.
bath and like, massage.
Yeah, so I think sound bath,
Sauna.
massage,
And if you have
like
access to a sauna, like
conga
there's
drums,
nothing
like
better than
playing
getting in some
music.
sauna work before bed. It's a really nice way to unwind and chill. Yeah, and then for couples out there, I always recommend getting a massage table. That way you can massage each other. It's a great.
So we kind of started at like super high consciousness, like, you know, connecting with your body and then immediately into breath work and like, ascension and all this stuff. And then we've slowly been kind of like bringing back down into like more and more physical reality. And I kind of want to like really ground things as we like start to bring this to a close because and it's kind of a full circle. So I'm actually curious if you would share how you train because like we started with the body, but then we went really high up. And then we've been like giving the audience kind of like, here's ways to like start to pull this higher consciousness down, through breath work and then through, you know, cold heat and these other things through a presence board, understanding, yourself and your avatar and your being. And like, I know people when they go to your Instagram, they're going to be like, how does this guy train? Like, how many days a week does he work out? What does his training look like? So can you walk us through that as kind of like a fun way to really start to ground this? Because I
Yeah.
think a lot of people think that like you can't be like super spiritual and like super jacked. I love to break that paradigm down because I myself consider myself very spiritual, but I'm also in great shape. And I want to like you're at another level, like because you're like two of me put into one, basically. So walk us through kind of like how you train in any like given day and like a full week, kind of what that looks like.
Fantastic. So I kind of like train a little bit all through the day. I do work from home. I have the advantage of working from home, which is really nice. And so I can create my own schedule. So that's good to point out, I feel. I usually, when I wake up, I'll do quite a bit of like just simple, where it's like rolling out my feet or foam rolling and just kind of moving my body and roll. And then when I take the dog for a walk, I always go to this specific field and I'll work on like mobility movements there, whether it's actual sprints, backpedaling, lateral gallops and stuff like that, lunging. And I do it all barefoot in the grass. So it's a combination of earthing, the sun's coming out, and I'm moving just my body in general. And then I'll do a little bit of work when I come home from that walk. And then I usually train in the afternoon. And so I still incorporate a few bodybuilding movements because I just like the way that my body looks in certain aspects. So, but it's a little bit different. So I usually train everything unilaterally. So I don't really press with barbell. It's only dumbbells and it's unilateral movement. And the same thing with a lot, like lunging and just RDLs and stuff like that. So that I kind of shifted from like pressing things together to alternating. And that's been really nice on my structure, because I feel like that's how we naturally move when we run. We're moving unilaterally, we're taking steps. So I've kind of changed my training with that while keeping body movements. So like today, actually, I'll give you an example. So today I was like a chest and back focus. So, I had my bodybuilding movements unilaterally. So I did, and on top of that, I have these everydayers. So I have these everydayers that I do, which is just 100 body weight squats, 100 push-ups, 100 core, 100 lunges, 50 pull-ups every day. Let me see if I left anything out. And I think that's it. So I have these everydayers, which is just body weight. And so I'll create almost like a circuit for myself. So today, my first circuit was unilateral incline dumbbell press, superset with 5 pull-ups, superset with 20 body weight squats, jump rope was the other one, superset with 100 jump rope. And then and then I would run through that like 5 times without kind of really stopping. And then I would do another big set where I would do like floor presses alternating with dumbbell seal rows with a core movement. And or now the lunge is also added in there. And then I'll create a circuit with that, and I'll hit that 5 times through. So I'm getting those reps in for the body weight and for the muscle and the hypertrophy movements as well. And so that's kind of like how I train. And then at the end, I always throw in some type of flow, whether it's with my mace, with kettlebells, with my clubs, or some type of animal flow even. And actually, like, what I do is if I like, so since today I did some bodybuilding, tomorrow would be almost a full day of just kind of mace work and kettlebells and clubs where I'm like flipping them and catching them and challenging myself with like that kind of stuff. And like, even like the animal flow stuff that I mentioned. And so I'll have a day of like, where it's more like play and less like body. Yeah. And then the next day will be like, say a leg predominant day where I'll have the still leg extensions with the squats, but then I'm also going to like do a pistol squat out of Bosu ball while holding a kettlebell and like really challenge my that way, I'll do some weird stuff. And so I keep some of the bodybuilding movements, but I also make it really funky and weird to move more, I think, more properly, more primal.
Yeah. So, absolutely love it. Couple follow-up
I
questions
think I
there.
mostly
So
work
from
out
my
7 days a
understanding,
week, but like,
do you work
I
out
think
7 days a
I'm really
week,
good
or
about
do you
listening
take
to
like
my
a full
body
rest
and
day?
like how hard I push it. There'll be like some days where I'm like, oh, you know what? Like
Mhm.
I'm on day 6 or something like that. And it's like, you know what? Today I'm just going to do a kettlebell flow for 30 minutes. That might lead to me like doing a mace flow for maybe 20 minutes afterwards. And that was my only workout of the day. And then I'll hit my yoga
Mhm.
in the evening. And so like I move every day. I'm always a big fan of moving every day, whether it's
Mhm.
yoga or kettlebells or weights in general, or I even do a barefoot trot around my neighborhood, just strengthen my feet. And I'll do that every night with my dog, and then keep increasing
Mm.
the laps around that. And it's not for cardio;
Yeah.
it's just for my feet. So,
Yeah.
and so I'm always moving at some point. Like I do yoga before bed,
Mhm.
so I'm always like quote unquote training or working out, because I think movement is life, especially for a person. It's really beneficial, and it's just a great way to connect.
Yeah. I love that. It also, and I think I know this more because I've just like hung out with you before, like virtually. Like, it seems like you do like 30 to 60 minutes of cardio pretty much like every morning, whether that's like walking up a treadmill and doing an Instagram live at the same time, or, going out with your dog and doing some sort of cardio. And then, like, essentially, you'll do that in the morning, then you'll have one of your meals, and then later you'll actually do kind of like more strength based training, some of which is like bodybuilding, some of which is like more dynamic, like kettlebells and maces. But essentially, like you're moving every day, but you're really listening to your body. So I'm curious because I'm pretty much the same way. I like to like the least amount I do in any given day, and
Mm.
this is like once every few months, is like I'll go for like a 20 to 30-minute walk. And that's like happens maybe, you know, once, like I'll take that back. Recently, it's happening more often because I'm working a lot more, and when I am using my mind more for a bunch of
Yeah.
different projects, I find that it actually fatigues like my whole body, at least recently. But like I'm curious, like the thing I've been facing now that I'm 40 is like I tend to like go all
Yeah.
out every workout until I'm until I
Balance.
can't work out the next day. And what I'm trying to learn is uh being more connected to my body and like
Yeah.
pulling back. So instead of doing 120%, doing like 80%. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Let's save 20% in the tank. And then that way you can move every single day of the week.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if I don't move, I like my person gets unhappy. So if I'm like physically exhausted and can't move my person then mentally becomes upset with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. And that's what makes getting into kettlebells and stuff in the mace is really cool because it's like your movement, but it's more so you are flowing. I think
Hmm.
this is the best thing that everybody in mace work and clubs is the coolest thing that you can get into. And what's beautiful, like once you get comfortable with that, you start flowing with heavy kettlebells and you be silverback. Like your back becomes ridiculous. Your grip becomes ridiculous. Your mobility in your shoulders becomes ridiculous. Your core insane. Your focus, you focus because you're throwing these things around, you're flipping them, you're swinging them. I see myself getting more and more into kettlebell training every day. And my body looks way better and it's way more functional. It's way stronger. It's funny. It's like I think like, oh yeah, like my squat will go down or like my pressing will go down when I do it. We don't do it, but I'm like throwing around, 150-pound kettlebells, and it's just, ap- yeah, it's absolutely wild what happens to your body. Like you just become like cast iron, and you're flexible cast iron. Like, it's so cool, and then you go to, like, hit your pressing, and you're just as strong. You haven't even really technically hit chest. It's like you've been doing other things, like stabilization, and it's really, really cool stuff, and, like, just swinging these heavy maces is, like there's nothing cooler than wielding a heavy mace and, swinging it and, like, working with it and, like, finding the balance and all of it and, like, just seeing how it all works and the flexibility in your shoulders and your grip. It's like, it all has to come together. And it takes quite a bit of work to, like, learn the swing and learn how a kettlebell is being used. And that's really cool because you have to be mindful. You have to be paying attention, and you don't become on autopilot so much with, like, the bodybuilding. And I think even over time, we train so much the same way, we become very rigid, and we're not really present anymore. So it's really wonderful to kind of split it up and do some fun things that maybe are outside your wheelhouse, and that way you be present with your person and challenge your person in all those different ways.
Yeah. It's really fascinating to me, you know, this is divine timing because I literally just learned maybe 3 weeks ago how to use the clubs, like a couple different really great movements. And then literally over the last
I
few weeks, I've been incorporating way more kettlebell work, and now I'm flipping in between doing gymnastics rings, traditional like bodybuilding movements, and kettlebells and clubs and maces. And I'm getting back to the like, holy shit, I can work out 7 days a week again because I'm not just
Yeah,
like beating myself through, uh, you know, traditional, strength training, like push pull legs.
Yeah.
Like I'm starting to like flip it up all like, and just having way more fun, like flowing in my workouts. Cause I've spent decades kind of like building the foundation with that, like, working out 6, 7 days a week, push, like either, traditional body, part split or like a traditional push pull leg split. And now I'm like, oh, this part of my body's really fatigued and exhausted, but these other parts of my body, like they have energy and they would like some movement. So I'm going to like do like movement today that like hits those while this other part of my body rests. Or I'm going to work on like stabilization, or I'm going to work on that like coordination and like range of motion with weight. So it's like forcing you to build strength through an entire movement that you don't normally do. Like you're normally not swinging a mace around that weighs like 5 pounds to like 30 pounds. You know what I mean? Like your body's just like, whoa, well, this is totally new. And it's really cool to hear that your physical conditioning, because I just started this in the last couple of weeks, but like you're telling me your physical conditioning is like even better now that you've been kind
Yeah.
of doing this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think with the bodybuilding, it's so rigid and it creates such a wild tightness actually
Mm,
within us. So I really, really I love this type of movements, love this type of work. My body, I feel, is looking better and better all the time. It's been a lot of fun transitioning from the conventional bodybuilding to more functional. And then you can keep adding the weights and get really strong. There's some amazing, amazing things I've seen out there with people with juggling kettlebells. It's the coolest thing I've seen. It's really cool. Really, really cool. And I've been playing with that and it's amazing. Like, man, after you juggle like a 16 kilogram kettlebell and you're flipping it and you're moving, weighting it. And it's not even that like compared to these other guys that they're flipping. It's wild, like how your body changes and what it starts looking like. And you're functional,
yeah.
absolutely functional. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And it's really kind of brought a beautiful fire because I was bodybuilding for so long from age 14 to essentially age like 35, 36, maybe even 37 before I actually started playing with kettlebells. It's been maybe to 38 if I'm being honest. It's like I only got into it like a year ago, I think,
Hmm.
mostly.
Yeah. And for the audience, like 16 kilograms is about 35 pounds, if I remember correctly. So it's like, it's a lot of weight to be throwing around, actually, especially if you've never done it before. Also, like when Justin's talking about throwing around 150-pound kettlebells, he's a big fucking dude. So don't like be like, oh man, I can only start with
Yeah.
like, 20 pounds or 15. Like Justin's been at this for decades. As we kind of wrap this up, obviously, I really want to encourage the audience to go check out your Cosmic Breathwork program that I did this morning because it was like so transcendental and it really is accessible for anybody. Like, don't be scared that it's an hour. Like, just do what I did. Like,
Yeah.
go get it and like say like you're gonna do like 10 to 20 minutes of it and just see where it takes you. Like, treat it like the ice bath. You're gonna jump in for 30 to 90 seconds. And if you keep going, you keep going. If not, not. I'm just curious. Like, I know you have some other programs available. What are some of those other programs that people, if they're interested in your work, could get?
Yeah. So I have shorter programs for the people who maybe just don't have time. They got a lot of things going on, family and kids, and it's a little bit hectic in the morning. So I have a 15-minute program available. I have a 30-minute program available. And I actually have two 60-minute programs available. And the one that you have is Cosmic, which is more geared and with the intentions of exploring consciousness and the cosmos. So it's about just really having fun exploring that. And then the other one is a healing program. So if you are an individual that's struggling with intrusive thoughts and or trauma
Hmm.
and stuff like that, and you're looking to heal and forgive and to move through things, the healing program is very, very powerful. The music I picked for that was specifically to create a safe space and love for you to work through some of the things that can be incredibly tough to work through. On top of that, I am in the process of creating a whole new website with Kajabi, which will be really cool. And there'll be a number of new different styles of breath work that we'll be launching soon at nirvanamindandbody.com. Hopefully that launches in a month, and that will be available for everybody. We'll be doing spinal flex breath work. We'll be doing mindfulness meditations. There'll be programs on how to manage your anxiety, how to mourn a loss, uh, intimacy with lovemaking, divine unions will also be all included in all this kind of stuff. So it's going to be a really wonderful place. Training as well, but with a different approach of connecting with the person, meditating while training, the flow state. And so it'll be really fun. And then obviously just putting this type of information out there to just raise consciousness for everybody to become enlightened. And I'm really excited for this project to come to fruition. Pumped.
Awesome. Well, everybody, the best place to connect with Justin besides his website that he just mentioned there is probably on Instagram. It's we'll put it in the show notes. It's Justin D. Lovato. Are there any last words of wisdom or requests that you want to make to the audience, or any other thoughts that you want to share before we close this down?
Wonderful. If you did, first off, if you did want to jump on one of the programs right now, the website that you can find that is iamnirvana.org. So you can jump on that, and there's a few, there's some wonderful breathwork programs on there, like the ones you just did this morning, along with some really fun functional training programs too, that are kind of like in a really good space for people that are just barely getting into kettlebell, but still really prefer the bodybuilding. There's a built functional program that's really, really fun, good stuff. And then
any last words of wisdom, requests to the audience, or thoughts you want to share?
I think learning how to create space from one's thoughts is a very, very powerful tool. And I think if more people really take the time to understanding that meditation is something that should be in everybody's daily practice, can really help them start to manage their thoughts, manage their anxiety, and manage their person in a really powerful way, and make really, really powerful changes in their everyday life. And it can be difficult at first, but it's really quite beautiful once you start leaning into this type of work and completely change who you are, what you're doing. You can revamp your entire paradigm, your reality, just through getting still. And it's incredibly powerful. And also, like, I always let people know, if you're an individual that cannot afford my programs or my services, I will always work with you, even if that's absolutely free. And it's about really getting people into this work. If you want the program and you can only afford $10 to pay for the program, you'll get the program for $10. So don't sit on this. Start looking into this type of work, make big, powerful changes in your everyday life, and realize or remember what you're a part of.
Awesome. Justin, thanks so much for coming on the show, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. And remember, literally everything can be used as an opportunity to learn, to heal, to grow, and to transform. So whatever is going on in your life, choose to consciously and proactively harness that energy and use it to alchemize your life to the next level. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend or on your favorite social media, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. As always, you can find me at Justin David Carl on Instagram and all the socials, as well as at alchemizelife.com on the web. Until the next time, sending you lots of energy and plenty of dragon magic.